Do you feel like God's given you a bunch of songs, but you don't know what to do with them? Do you feel like you've got a real call on your life to write, but you're clueless about where to start? Or maybe you've got writer's block and you're wondering if you'll ever get the creative juices flowing again. Well, we've got you covered with NCS membership. NCS membership is all about community and how to grow in this calling you feel deep inside to be heard. We get it. We know that you just want to honor God with your talents and be a good steward of what He's given you. And that's why NCS membership could be your next right step to grow, learn, be challenged, get connected, and ultimately fulfill your dreams to glorify God and reach others with the same passion you feel. It's designed to help you tell your story and to reach listeners who will love your songs. With your NCS membership, you'll receive 2 free song critiques, 24/7 access to valuable masterclasses on topics such as modern hymn writing, worship writing, song form, lyric development, and recording home demos, as well as discounts for other NCS products, and a deep connection into a community of creatives who get you. There are a lot of songwriters out there, so you need to be the best you can be to stand out, be heard, and become the songwriter you were born to be. Just go to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com now to check out all the great benefits of becoming part of a decidedly Christian community of songwriters from all over the world. NCS membership, your next right step to being heard.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Song Revolution podcast, brought to you by Nashville Christian Songwriters. Nashville Christian Songwriters exists to empower Christian songwriters worldwide. I'm John Chisum, and this podcast exists to bring you valuable songwriting insights, inspiration, interviews, and just all around good fun with some of the greatest songwriters, producers, arrangers, artists, and creatives, and beyond. You can find out a whole lot more about us at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. Hey, you guys, John Chisum here. Welcome to the show. If you listen very often, you know that doing the show is one of my favorite things to do because I get to get into the minds and the music of some very amazing people. Artists, songwriters, publishers, record company people, so many great stories and such a fantastic look into some things about the music industry and even into the inner workings of these people that you're just not going to hear anywhere else. So you get to hear it right here on the Song Revolution podcast. Yes, give me some love. Give me some love for the SRP. So today's show is off the chains with an iconic CCM artist who was once known for her big hair and a pop sound and for selling a truckload of her amazing records, winning a bunch of Dove Awards, and just gaining a worldwide audience who loves her to this day. That's right. Cindy Morgan is on the show today to share what she's doing with her music and art these days, and you're just going to be blown away. We had a fantastic talk the other week, and she shares some samples of songs that she's written for 2 of her upcoming albums and a documentary about growing up in bloody Harlan County, Kentucky, that take her back to her Appalachian roots. Cindy is a 2-time Grammy nominee and one of Nashville's most influential singer-songwriters. She's garnered 12 Dove Awards. I'm not sure how you garner stuff, but that's what it says in her bio. She's garnered 12 awards, including the prestigious Songwriter of the Year trophy. 21 number 1 hits to her credit. In addition to her own iconic discography, she's penned songs for such artists as Amy Grant, India.Arie, Rascal Flatts, Natalie Grant, Michael W. Smith, Point of Grace, Mandisa, and that's always this one, Francesca Battistelli, among many others. And as if that all isn't enough, you guys, Cindy's going to be our guest again in just a couple of weeks at our next NCS Weekend Intensive happening here in Nashville, September 27th through 29th, 2018, along with Director of Lifeway Worship, Mike Harland, founder and A&R Director of Centricity Music, John Mays, working with artists such as Lauren Daigle, Johnny Diaz, Jason Gray, and many more. And then we have Tom Jackson, who is the live music producer for Phillips, Craig, and Dean. Again, Francesca Battistelli, Jackie Velasquez, Shawn Mendes, and even T. Swift. That's right, 3 tours for Taylor Swift. So this is some top shelf kind of stuff, you guys. And we've got a whole roster of NCS pro coaches who are going to offer you 3 different hands-on coaching sessions where you bring your songs and you get the what's up so that you can take your songwriting to amazing levels. Cindy and her buddy John Roberts from Capitol Records will be doing a private artist showcase and a session to talk about and maybe even demonstrate track and top-line writing. That will be amazing. For more information on the NCS Weekend Intensive, go to our site, NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. Open the store link and scroll down and you will find some amazing information there. How to register, the cool place we're going to be, the people that are going to be there, what it's all going to be about, a full schedule. And get this, you can save $100, 100 smackers on registration through September 15th. And I said that weird, September 15th. And we hope that you'll come and rub shoulders with our amazing lineup and even chow down on some world famous Martin's Barbecue at Centricity Music, because we're going to be there. They're going to be hosting us for our Thursday night opening dinner. And John Mays himself is going to share on some great things about how the record company stuff works. And you get to meet him and hang out, and it's going to be awesome. So, without further ado, please sit back, grab a sweet tea, and enjoy our friend and amazing musician, songwriter, and artist, Cindy Morgan. All right, Cindy Morgan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great thing, man. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you.
You were at our recent NCS Weekend Intensive with Jenny Owens, and such a fantastic night of music with you two. You played off each other so well.
Well, that's the wonderful thing about being friends for so long. And we were roommates when she did her first tour, which was like the Rocketown tour where we had a couch. It was like one of those first tours that had a couch on stage, I remember, and it was so great. So we were roommates, and so we've been friends ever since. So I love her.
She's so awesome, and
she is
such an amazing writer, as are you. And
I was going to say I loved being a part of that. Someone from that night reached out to me. And I'm like sitting here going, did I email that person back? I can't. Oh, wait, no, it was the lady who ordered the 10 books. She ordered a bunch of the book, How Could I Ask for More books. And so she and I exchanged emails, and I sent her the books. And so I was like, that was so sweet of her. But I love playing at those sorts of events because I don't know. I feel like people who come from their small towns, their small communities where the arts are definitely not thought of as maybe as valuable as they are thought of to be in a town like Nashville. So, it's like you get your ticket and you go to be inspired. And so I feel like when you play at an event like that, people are so open and they're so ready to be, to be inspired and to receive something that's meaningful. And, for songwriters, there is really no more fulfilling thing to do than to sit, in front of 30 people or whatever, however many people it was. It's probably a lot more than that, and just be, connect.
It was relaxed. It was intimate. It was fun. And I loved how you guys work together. And we have about 30 that come to our NCS Weekend Intensives. And the whole goal that we have is to just pour into them and pour into them. And you having been at one time right where they are, you've been recording with the labels and stuff since 92. Your first record came out, Real Life. And so I
had huge hair back then.
You did.
When I show my daughters, and my daughter Savannah, she has my hair, and except for more. And we were just talking the other day. It's just such a funny trip. We were talking about how when hair was, Savannah, who's 14, was talking to someone about big hair. Like we were back to school shopping, and this dad was waiting for his daughter in the dressing room, and he goes, big hair is bound to come back. I mean, no offense to these girls with long straight hair, but the big hair has got to come back.
Crazy.
And then I was like, oh my word. I mean, in the 90s, I had pictures where it's like, why did anyone let me go on camera like that? Because it was like they had used like an hour of teasing and a bottle of hairspray. And it was like, my hair was like so high, but it was so big to have big hair.
Hey,
So,
I had big hair at one time too.
did you?
Oh
yeah.
it looked like
You've got good hair.
natural
You've got nice hair.
afro. Thanks. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
that's hilarious.
When you say real life, I just remember that record.
I know, right?
Tyler had such huge hair.
I remember the cover on that, and you did have some pretty big hair, absolutely. But I mean, it was a holdover from the late '80s and on into.
Yeah.
We went to this thing in Michigan one time with a pastor I was working with, and it was an '80s night, and they had like an '80s cover band.
Yeah.
And so I dressed up like, you're supposed to dress up, right?
Okay.
So I dressed up like John McEnroe when he
Oh my goodness.
when he had the big fro, right? And the headband and the big glasses. And I had on like, athletic pants. And I started to wear like super short shorts, like we're big back in the 80s for tennis players. And my wife wouldn't let me out of the house.
That's so awesome.
But we went to this place and I carried a tennis racket around.
That's
it was
awesome.
But big hair.
I remember
big
that.
Hair
I remember
stuff,
the Macintosh fro. That's good.
But let's go back to that time in your life just briefly, because I think John Mays was the first one to kind of discover you and bring you into the recording thing. But you came from a small town and
I came from the holler. Okay,
that's what I thought.
So I came from the holler, and my parents were both. My mom played piano. My dad was a guitar player. He was always playing in a band, and he was a songwriter. My mom was a gospel singer. She also was a songwriter, and so my whole childhood, and I was the youngest of 6 by a lot. And so I was the last one at home, and my whole childhood is filled with, rehearsals in our living room and, being in the backseat of the car with my dad or my mom and dad going to a show, going to a gig or a church show or something like that. So, I think when I met John, it was like I met him probably in 90, and we did a development deal. But, the late 80s and 90s and Mariah Carey and all of that sort of like R&B pop music was just huge. Mm-hmm. And so, and I loved that music and really wasn't interested in the music of my roots of my childhood. I was interested in what was current, which was that sort of music, which is how I ended up doing those pop records with John and with Mark Hammond in those early days.
And they were awesome and started you off on a whole
absolutely
awesome,
taught me so much
hit career and with big hair. And
huge,
yet, here you are coming back to your roots in a whole lot of ways, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I've been, I think, for me, kind of the timeline of doing those records. And with every record, I was kind of discovering myself as a writer more. And then, by the second record, I'd co-written almost everything and had written some stuff just by myself. And then by the third record, I was writing everything. And, but I think that the singer-songwriter in me was always begging to come out, but I didn't know, I was young. I didn't know that about myself. So but I think when you go out and you're doing, like all these shows, like 200 plus shows a year, and you go, if I have to sing to another track, I'm dying inside. This is not, for me, it just was not real music. And I just wanted real players. I wanted real musicians. But that sort of music was very hard to pull off with a band unless you had a lot of stuff on tape, And so, so I think it's probably been in the last 15 years that I really started to fall back in love with, with more roots, more of the music that I grew up with, Americana music, which of course has had a huge comeback in the last decade as well.
Thankfully.
Yeah, thank goodness. And so yeah, and I think it's not only that that I've reconnected with my roots, but that I always want to be aware of like where music is currently. I intentionally don't listen to like throwback music a lot, just sometimes, but I try and listen to current music, as a writer, because you don't want to get stuck.
Right. Right. And I know you're going to play at least some snippets today of some of the songs that you're working on for 2 new recordings coming up. So can't wait for that. That's going to be fun. But so you are not only a singer-songwriter in doing your thing, but you maintain a lot of writing relationships around town and write for other artists and projects. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I do. I've been writing a lot of country here lately, but yeah, I write with a friend of mine, a couple artist friends in LA. We do a lot of FaceTime writing. We do pop a lot. I do some pop stuff that's like more film and TV, and then country music. I do a few right with several country artists here in town. A lot of developing young country artists that I've been writing with that are in the midst of making their first record. And so that's what I've been doing here lately. And then, always writing with some Christian artists as well. So
on the country and pop, are you working with publishers that you have agreements with, or is it just on an independent publishing basis?
Well, I'm with Reach/BMG. So Reach is a pop publishing company in LA, and so they've done kind of a joint venture with BMG. So sometimes it's through my publisher, sometimes it's just through friendships and like writers that you meet around town, or producers that I work with that will call me in as the third writer with the artist, if it's them, the producer and the artist and me. So
right, that's fantastic. Yeah. More concentrating on lyric development in those situations.
But I mean, it's always melody and lyric. I mean. Yeah. It's hard to, and they're always melody, and it's not like, I feel like sometimes it used to be, if you're doing track writing, top line writing, then the track writers are pretty married to that melody. But I'm not a very good track writer, and I did it, but it's not what comes natural, because so much of the process of kind of discovering a song is like that. It kind of comes together. You may have a little motif, or a thought or an idea or a line, but like as it moves forward, it kind of unfolds before you. And the hard thing about track writing is that this whole thing has happened, has developed on its own, and then it's sometimes very difficult to find that just right lyric that is a perfect marriage to that track, as a person who prefers to write organically. So
for people listening, track writing would be that someone's already developed the track, the actual melody, and everything is just intact, and you've got to come up with the hook. You've got to write it from scratch.
Yeah, the lyric that matches that melody
to a track.
Like Michael Smith, he does that. I mean, he and I have written a lot together, and for whatever reason, what he does that's great is he always has a hook, like a lyrical hook. He will always go. He'll send. He calls it the La La track,
right?
And he's always got this hook that he wants it to come back to, and he always comes to the table with, "This is what I feel like the song is about." But very often with track writers, they don't come to they don't have a hook and they don't have ideas. So it's like, it feels like you're kind of pulling something out of thin air without the advantage of discovering it through a conversation or
Right,
something,
right.
or through a life experience.
Yeah.
So you have to, it's like divining, it's like, I'll just listen to the track in my car and, and just listen and listen and listen. Like, just, oh Lord, just tell me what this is supposed to be.
Well, you from the holler, you know what a divining rod is.
That's
so you're
right.
looking for
I
the
was
water.
thinking, that's right. You're looking for the water in the ground.
You're out witching for water.
That's right.
In this track,
witching
right?
for water. Sounds like a country song.
That's kind of a nice. Well, I get 10% if you.
I know.
Write
I was going
that.
to say,
That's,
okay, we should write
witching
that
for
song.
water. It's got some nice alliteration
That's right.
to it. So
I like it.
I did that. One of my biggest songs ever, and I'm dating myself now, but 30 years ago, the late Bill George, if you remember Bill, came to me. I was new with the Gaithers back in the day, and he came to me one day with this fully developed melody and a hook, Mighty Fortress.
Oh, my goodness.
I was a brand new writer here in town, and I think I worked on that thing day and night for 2 months.
Are you serious?
No, I'm serious. I didn't know how to do it.
Oh, it's a big song. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, Larnell Harris sings it to this day.
That's amazing.
And
that's great.
I literally assembled that thing a syllable at a time.
That's cool.
And
because it was already there.
It was already there. I know, right? So I don't like that either. I'm more organic. I want us to. Co-writing for me is so relational and synergistic, and I want to just flow in the spirit, right? And so when we get together, I want to hear what's on your heart, and you just go with it. So track writing would be hard.
Yeah, I've missed some opportunities because I'm not good at it, but that's okay.
Tell us, I've been hearing from some people because that's not so much my world, but when they say the top line guy, what does that totally mean for us old timers?
So top line writing is where sometimes you'll look on some of those big pop songs and you'll see like 7 writers on it. So it may start in a room with a producer, the track guy, and another writer. And then they will send it on to an artist who may add something, add a pop melody or a lyric, but then they may not do it. Then it'll get sent on. So everyone's just kind of layering more writing on top. And so the top line is like where something's already been established and you're adding on to it, but it's like the melody and sometimes the lyric is already going, and then you're just adding to what's already been started. So
wow, that seems so complicated. Like, who's managing that process, right?
It's a lot of writers, yeah. But usually it's like they're aiming to send it to an artist who will be the final person in the chain, but sometimes by the time the artist gets it, there's like 3 writers on it already or 4 writers on it already.
Wow.
But they have a lot of power to negotiate and get a bigger piece of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So for instance, I wrote a song with Drew Ramsey. Do you and Drew know each other?
I know the name. We don't know each other yet.
Yeah, so he's produced India.Arie, a lot of her records, and Johnny Lang, and he's one of the head professors at Belmont in the songwriting department. But he played for me on the road for years. So we're family, and but anyway, he had an idea that he had really fleshed out a lot, and I really just helped him finish the song. So I was not even a 50-50 writer on that song to begin with, because I didn't feel like I had earned that, But anyway, but then India heard it and really wanted, so I did the demo with him, and then she wanted to record it. So she kind of saw that as a top line opportunity, and she changed a couple little things, but then she wanted a substantial amount of publishing. But for her top line, we were able to negotiate, to make it okay. But and she added some cool things to it, But that's a situation where you thought it was done, but the artist sees it as like, okay, I'm going to take this and kind of make it my own in a way, and then do some edits, and they become a part of the writing process.
Wow.
But you got to play ball.
Yeah, right?
You got to play ball.
Yeah, I mean, because it's such a privilege to even be there at all.
Yeah,
and,
right.
So
You just make it work.
you don't want to burn bridges if you can help it. So, well, you mentioned a while ago that you work with some up and coming country artists and maybe some established ones. Are there any songs we would recognize that you've been part of?
I mean, all of the ones that I'm working on, like, I think that, I have not had the only thing in country music that I've had is when Point of Grace recorded some stuff that I'd written and they released those to the country music market.
Okay.
And so, but really my stuff in country music, I wrote with a girl, Lindsay Bryant, and she did a release, and she's a really, really talented country music artist, but she did an independent release and I think it did well. But because she wasn't with a major, I don't think it made the kind of splash she wanted it to be. It was such a good project, but anyway, so the artist that I'm working with now, like Raquel Cole, is one of the artists that I've worked with for a long time, and she's a Canadian artist. She was the CMA New Artist of the Year a couple of years ago, so she's released a project, and she's really great. And then a couple other younger artists that I'm working with that are still developing deals right now.
Well, it sounds fascinating, and to be able to work in different genres, country, pop, Christian, and all the variations of all that.
Yeah, like I wrote a couple songs with Echo Smith, the band, the pop band, a couple years ago, and so their record has not yet come out. But and that was a situation where we began the top line, and then myself and Jeremy Bowes, we started the song, and then they got it and they kind of made it their own and wrote on it as well. But yeah, that's very different than writing with a country artist, like the pop thing of just kind of like doing what you think and then sending it on, versus sitting there in the room with another singer-songwriter and from start to finish doing the song, which is what feels more traditional.
Wow. But your favorite way to go about this seems to be organic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back to the holler and back to those roots of, your mom and dad, and your granddaddy was a musician as well.
He played banjo. He played clawhammer banjo. But yeah, I wish I'd brought his banjo, but yeah, he was a total mountain man. From my childhood memories, he lived in a log cabin that he and my dad built together. And we used to climb up the mountain with jugs of water that we had taken to the spring, like old milk jugs that we cleaned out, and would fill up with spring water for his water supply, because he did not have running water or electricity. And so he would make, he had a wood-burning stove, so he would make, squirrel and fried potatoes on his wood-burning stove and biscuits. And then he would fix us a meal, and then he would play banjo for us in the cabin. So it was for reals.
That's like Norman Rockwell-ish almost. Well, he didn't paint log cabins necessarily, but still, that's so like Americana.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you brought your banjo when we did the intensive a month or so ago, and it was awesome.
So fun.
I liked it when you turned your little baby Taylor around or whatever and played with the blastics. That was fun.
That happened accidentally at a show where I was like, oh my goodness, this song so needs a beat. And I think there was someone had drums on the stage the night before, and I was just like looking around, and I saw the brushes, and I was like, And so, I just grabbed them, and so I've used it a lot just because it's very utilitarian. It's like it's very easy, low key,
Yeah. Yeah, for those of you listening, she basically set the butt of the guitar on her lap and with the neck up on her shoulder, and then played with the brushes on the back of the guitar. So it was very, very cool. Yeah, I said butt on the
You said
on the
but.
podcast. Yeah. I did.
B-U-T-T.
Yeah. But it was great. It was great. I love that. So do you want to tell us about the new project?
Yeah. So since we're talking about my grandpa Barney, so about 6 years ago, my friend, a guy that I've made a lot of music together with over the years, Jeremy Bowes, he's a really great producer, and he's produced, Trent Dabbs and Sugar in the High-Lows and Young Summer. Like he's done very, very well in the market of like alternative like music and like singer-songwriter Americana. He's great at that. And we did our pop band, St. Lola in the Fields.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of sync and stuff with that. And so we just finished each other's sentences. He's the writer that I feel like he certainly makes me better, and I hope he feels the same way about me. But anyway, we started working on a project about my grandpa Barney. Because we've known each other all these years, I would always tell him stories about my family and especially my grandpa Barney, because he was very infamous. And he was orphaned at 13 and, became a moonshiner and was running moonshine for the mafia during Prohibition by the time he was 14. And then, he lived a very hard life, and he lost his wife and youngest son in a tragic logging accident. And then he got messed up with this woman whose alias was Helen Love. She killed her first husband with a beer bottle and kicked him out of a moving car in Colorado. Anyway, he brought this woman home like he was just out of his mind. He just didn't know what he was doing. And she tried to kill him, and he shot her in self-defense. And he went to prison for 10 years. So anyway, his life is it's really tragic but yet redemptive, in the years that after post prison. And what's funny is he lived with us for a while, and I just have this memory of my grandpa Barney. He was missing this tooth, and he would laugh, and he had this laugh that was just so I don't know. He was such a character. And I was never afraid of him. He was always so warm and so kind to me. We all loved him. And so there was a real brokenness in him, but still so much spirit and life. And I didn't know the stories about him until I got older. And maybe I would have been afraid, but he was a man who, we have this one song on the project. It's called The Poison Tree. About, was I just born for badness? He was born into such a bad situation. But anyway, so Jeremy and I started working on that project 6 years ago. And then we decided we wanted to do a documentary about it too. And so we started doing interviews and went back to Kentucky and went to the coal mines and, went and did interviewed family members and my Aunt Bill, who was his half daughter, his stepdaughter, she was his half daughter, and it was his stepdaughter. Yeah, so it was his wife's first marriage, and so anyway, and I mention her because the song I'm going to do is kind of inspired by her part of the story and him. But anyway, so. Yeah, it's just, so then the documentary kind of sidetracked us, and then we were like, we got to remember that it was the record that's what we really started for. And so it is a record and a documentary, and it's called Bad Creek, which is where my parents grew up, Upper Bad Creek and Lower Bad Creek, Kentucky, in Harlan County.
Bloody Harlan.
Bloody Harlan. So
Harlan, Bloody Harlan.
So it's really just it documents the really big parts of his life that were kind of earth-shattering. So anyway, yeah. So I could do maybe a little bit of Preacher Woman. Okay.
Heck
so my Aunt Bill that I just talked about, they called her Wild Bill. So she was a mountain preacher and just like hell on wheels, just like hellfire and brimstone. And I was always so terrified of her when I was a kid because she was had jet black hair down to her waist and maxi skirts, and she drove a Cadillac and cat eye rhinestone glasses, and she was nobody to be trifled with. And so Preacher Woman is about her. The serpent knows a name. Her weapon is your shame. Her voice could raise the dead, and Jesus shakes his head. Ooh, you know she knows the truth. Ooh, she's gonna lay it on you. Ooh, and she walks like Judgment Day. Ooh, and she smells like fear. Out of the coal dust she appears. I just see her when she's coming. Ooh, Preacher Woman. You got secrets in your heart. If you come as you are, there'll be no mercy until you turn. Will you burn with the fires of hell on earth? Ooh, you know she knows the truth. Ooh, she's gonna lay it on you. Ooh, and she walks like Judgment Day. Ooh, and she smells like fear. Out of the cold dust she appears. I just send her when she's coming. Ooh, Preacher Woman. She said, sinner, you know your name. Right now in a minute the choir's gonna sing. And if you leave here and die today, who'll save your soul then? 'Cause it will be too late. But it wasn't fire, it wasn't fear that led me to the altar, shedding tears. You thought I was drinking from your cup of wrath, but it was sweet salvation finally mine at last. Ooh, you know she knows the truth. walks like Judgment Day. Ooh, and she smells like fear. Out of the coldest she appears. Hide your sin when she's coming. Ooh, preacher woman.
Cindy, dang, that's just absolutely amazing. Out of the coal dust she appears. You just paint such an amazing picture. I mean, that whole thing is such a study in imagery. I mean, when you think of just from the, I mean, forget just the freaky, crazy feeling you get from listening to the song, you know, about this preacher woman, but just as a song itself, you know, for just to dissect it a little bit, deconstruct, man, that's so chock full of images and smells and just all those beautiful images. How long does it take you to write something like that, and how does that start for you?
Well, I mean, I think I had this idea of I very often have an idea and the first line. So I knew I had the preacher woman. The serpent knows your name. Her weapon is your shame. You know,
So good.
you know, I don't know. That's for me, like growing up, understanding that kind of like fear-based preaching. My mom was also a female preacher, and she was not as hellfire and brimstone, not nearly as much as my aunt, but like her kind of presence in my memory was so, you know, there was coal dust on that woman, and she did smell like fear when she came coming. You know, I don't know. And so, but we probably worked on that over a couple sessions, you know. But again, when you've kind of been carrying the story with you your whole life, then it sometimes comes out really easy, you know, because it's, you know, it. It's the foundational thing they teach you about writing. Write what you know. And you know, and a lot of times we run away from writing what we know. We're trying to write what's current. We try to write what is in demand, but
right for the cut.
Yeah. So these songs are all none of that. Like there's not a song on this record. I mean, we may have some film and TV stuff, but we just wrote what was just the truth of the story and of what I knew, you know, from my memories. And Jeremy just does an amazing job of helping divine those things and helping shape that, you know. So. Yeah.
Wow. Takes me back to an FX series my wife and I watched about Harlan County.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of that show. That tall actor was in it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't think I've seen it.
Oh, well, you need to see it. I'll text you the name when I can remember it. But we watched the whole thing, and it was about bloody Harlan County, Kentucky, and more murders per capita than anywhere in the States.
Oh, it's insane. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, when we have this one song called Who's Buried Under the Tracks, which is a story about a scab. You know what that was? It was someone who would come in and for when they were trying to get rights for the miners and the workers.
Exactly.
And so the union would send a scab up there to take the place of those people who were trying to fight for rights.
Right.
And the story goes that he was murdered. My grandfather was present. He was not a part of it, but he was murdered and buried under the tracks. So we have this song called Who's Buried Under the Tracks?
You want to do a little
later? Oh, man. Okay. Okay. Just the chorus. Sometimes you can't take it back. Even the good Lord shaking his head. Why did you do that? There's no escaping the fact. Shame flows like thunder and someone's buried under the tracks.
cool. That's
Yeah.
so awesome.
Yeah.
I just love the flavor of these songs because they take me back a little bit to my childhood. My dad and mom were bluegrass musicians.
Oh, they were?
Yeah,
Oh,
so
cool.
Dad played guitar, mandolin, banjo, fiddle, and bouzouki, and my mom played harmonica and keys. And they would do you know, some of the old country songs, but he loved bluegrass, and I grew up in a home where we listened to everything from Flatt and Scruggs to Mahler.
Wow.
So very
That's
eclectic
great.
background. But I love just how you've captured the flavor of Grandpa Barney and
that
Harlan
era,
County.
you
Yeah,
know,
that
that time
era.
period.
Yeah.
So, oh man, it's been a lot of, it's been rich, you know, to just really dive in. I mean, so you're so often writing about yourself or, you know, about an experience. And so it's been great as a writer to completely step outside and just write about somebody else's life.
Mm.
I mean, and obviously there's a huge emotional connection for that for me, but it's not about me. You know, it's about honoring his memory and the whole family. Like I feel like I feel a definite responsibility to the Morgan family. I mean, it's Barney Morgan, you know, so that everyone will be proud of this,
Wow.
you know. So,
Yeah.
So anyway, that's it's been wonderful to work on.
So
it.
you're going to start recording that soon, and
August 18th.
got
Yeah.
so much footage already that you're putting together.
Yeah. And we're heading to the Morgan family reunion in Kentucky in September. We're going to get some more footage there, and go to the graveyard, to the Morgan Cemetery, where many of my ancestors, including my Grandpa Barney and his wife Tanny, are buried. And so, and Aunt Bill, who passed, we got to interview Preacher Woman. We got to interview her before she died, and then I was able to be there when they buried her ashes. And so we're going to go back to that same cemetery where she's buried and do some filming there and just absorb.
That is so awesome. So is there any kind of ETA on the documentary and the record?
I think probably springtime.
Okay.
I mean, it's because we want to take the fall and winter to get all the editing and everything done. And we know how to make a record, but the documentary is the trickier part. So, but we do have some really great people who are on board to help us.
Fantastic.
So,
is there a title for it
Bad
yet?
Creek.
You said that earlier. Yes, right.
Bad
Yeah,
Creek.
Bad Creek.
Yeah.
I love that. So that's one of two albums that you're currently writing for and working on. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the other?
Yeah, so the other one is, well, the working title is Autumn and Eve. And so basically it's like songs about the Old Testament. But like love songs. And, I mean, some love songs. And so, kind of like tragic Old Testament love songs. And so I want to call, Autumn and Eve, Old Testaments, Volume 1. So I want to do an EP, a Volume 1, EP, a Volume 2. And because I love the Old Testament, and there's so many interesting stories to write about. So the first thing that I wrote for it was this song that I'll play you a little bit of called West of Nod. And I wrote this with my hero, Wayne Kirkpatrick. He's
so awesome.
He's such a great songwriter. So you want me to play just a little bit of it?
Absolutely.
To dance under the stars and bask in the warmth of his love. But our hearts got cold and dancing got old. We
Wow, that's haunting and gorgeous and just it's deep and artistic, and you sound amazing singing it. And on the uke, are you going to record it just with the uke?
Well, I want to add a lot of instruments, but like I hear like there has to be a steel guitar, you know. We had it good, and that's definitely a 3-parter. Remember when we had it good?
Yeah.
You know, that 3-part bluegrassy, you know. So I definitely think it's like a mix of like an ethereal kind of bluegrass with a kind of more quirky pop melody, you know. So anyway, but yeah, it's Adam and Eve, and it's like the sadness of like, I just imagined like how sad how much regret. This as the song goes on, you know, just about Eve's regret, you know, and just like that. If she could go back and do it again, she would do it again. We would all do it again. But you know how it is as a writer. It's juicy to, you know, like sink your teeth into those things that are like, but you can't do it again, you know. So
wow, how do these things come to you? I mean, that is such it is so beautiful and artsy, and kind of how can I say, just it pulls you in, sucks you into that engaging. I'm straining for words, but it's like it intriguing, I guess maybe was the word I'm trying to look for. And so how did these ideas, like, I mean, I get, you know, the Granddaddy Barney, and that's a whole vibe in itself. But now this, it's more conceptual.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, there's another song on the record that I wrote with my friend Kip Raines. We wrote this song years ago, but it's like it's about King David and Bathsheba. It's called "Someone Else Can Be the King Tonight." You know, and so I feel like
great title.
It's about, you know, trace your skin along clear moonlight. Someone else can be the king tonight. You know, and so I mean, it is. I mean, I think the record is kind of sensual in that it addresses the humanness of these Old Testament people, you know, and that they were very flawed, but they had this passion for God, but they were flawed as we are today. And so I don't know. That's where for me, I want the feels. You know what I mean?
I know, right?
I want the feels. And so anyway, so I'm excited. I have to keep myself from making this record until I make the Kentucky record, because I'm writing it right now. So I'm so into it right now that I'm like, you can't. You've got to wait, finish this one, and then, because when you're writing it is when you've got the feels the hardest, you know?
Yeah. It's hard to go back to it, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've got another one called "Walk a Mile with Cain." And so it's kind of like, you know, I'm kind of trying to look at it like stories in the Bible from like different perspectives, you know. So, and I think writers, you know, if we can find a pair of fresh eyes for something that's really familiar. So like the story of Cain, the song about Cain, I think I heard maybe a Tim Keller sermon about, and if you've read East of Eden, you know, Steinbeck novel, I mean, the whole thing is about how Cain felt like unloved. He felt unloved by his father. And so just, looking at it, yeah, he's the murderer. He killed his brother with a rock. He did it. The blood was crying out from the ground. But, I mean, Abel have I loved. There's a line in this song that says, a father's love can't be overrated. When you said, Abel I have loved, but Cain I have hated.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, So anyway, I don't know. I probably root for the underdog a lot. But,
that's fantastic. It reminds me, I was just this past weekend at the Billy Graham Training Center with Steve Brown. I know Steve is Presbyterian radio guy. I wasn't really that familiar. And the topic was how to be right without being insufferable.
Yeah.
And he's like a Reformed Theological Seminary guy. And, and when I saw the topic and they'd invited me over to be the worship leader, I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be horrible. I mean, because I didn't know much about him, but he was so awesome and so funny. And he really spent a lot of time talking about the very thing you just mentioned about even these people that we respect and love so much are so flawed and so human. And he was talking about Brennan Manning. And Brennan was one of the most broken people ever. Yeah. And Steve talked about how Brennan would get up at alcoholics meeting and tell everybody how to be sober, and then go back to his hotel room and get smashed and just talk. And he brought some other, well-known names and their tremendous flaws. And yet Brennan's ministry reached hundreds of thousands of people and is one of the most loved and respected authors and broken, wounded healers. And so for you to capture these stories and these songs and help us remember the raw humanity, the humanness, if you will, of these characters is wonderful. What other can you just mention that are on that?
There's another one called Tomorrows That Never Come. And it's about, it's kind of personal, but it's about, making how we're always making plans. Like we're always looking for, the Old Testament, we're always looking ahead to when Jesus came. They were always looking for the day when he came, but they were so miserable in the day that they were in. And I feel like we can so easily, this is more like, I guess it's less specifically about someone in the Bible, but the perspective of we can so easily always live in the what is coming and totally miss the present, and miss what is here. But anyway, I have another one called Jacob's Trouble that I wrote a while back. But Jacob's trouble is he's working double, trying to figure out the easier way. Yeah. He's going to learn a lesson in living someday instead of running away. So, Jacob, he was the usurper. He was cheated by Laban because he was a cheater. It's just, and it's weird because his dad liked Esau, because Esau was like hairy and manly. And, I imagine Jacob was like more lithy, more artsy. And his dad liked the, like the stew that Esau made. Yeah, right? And so, Jacob had to be a trickster, and then he got tricked by Laban. And I don't know, like that whole story is kind of amazing, and how he got tricked with Rachel and Leah. And so it's all about him just being, trying to like come back to when he wrestled with the angel and said, "Tell me your name." There's a reason for that. Tell me your name, Jacob. It's like to say, see who you are, see who you are. And so,
wow.
Anyway,
heel grabber.
That's right.
Yeah.
Heel grabber.
Heel
Usurper.
grabber.
Yeah.
Behold, it was Leah.
That's
now,
right.
there's a song for you.
It's
Behold,
so like
it was
sowing
Leah.
and reaping a little bit,
Yeah.
you know? And so, yeah.
Except from the womb. I mean, how do you explain that
Human
one,
nature,
right?
yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's true.
Let's call Tim Keller.
Yeah, let's ask him.
Yeah.
So he would know. Yeah.
Well, that's all just amazing, and your artistry, your lyric crafting is just off the planet. Great, just the way all that works. And so, what happens when you get these albums and the documentary finished? Are they going to be? Where do we find them? How do we tap into that?
Yeah, so we're probably going to do a badcreek.com, and so, and it may be under my name with a band name kind of thing, you know, just to kind of like separate that from my kind of solo stuff, because I want to approach it more like a communal project, you know, but anyway, so for sure I'll have links to it on cindymorganmusic.com, but we'll start recording it. And then, I mean, we would love to, we are trying to do a documentary to get something done to where we could pitch it to Netflix, but you know, that could be a pipe dream, but.
Or not. I mean, it could happen on the heels of Justified. That's the name of the FX.
Justified. Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
So are you touring? Do you have dates coming up?
Yeah.
Where can people kind of tap into your...
Yeah. You know, I should have my dates that are on my website, Cindy Morgan Music. And so, I've got some shows coming up.
Good.
Yeah. Several shows coming up, and going to be up in Georgia for a few shows. And so doing a show here in Nashville with Andrew and Friends, Buddy Green, and Mark Lowry. We're doing a little Songwriters night next week. And so Sunday night at the 12th. It's sold out, but if you want to come stand outside, you could. You don't want to do that.
Oh my gosh. I'm just now finding out about it. So
we could find a seat for you.
I need to know the next one. Yeah, that's awesome, Cindy. Well, do you have anything that you'd say to people that are outside the Nashville bubble? They look at what's going on here, labels or publishers or, you know, successful songwriters, award-winning songwriters such as yourself. What would you say to somebody that's in some, I know we talked earlier about the people that have come to the intensive, but is there one thing that you'd say to encourage that writer?
Yeah. I mean, I think I would, if I put myself in their shoes and I'm imagining, you know, being in maybe a non-art driven town where maybe I would say, first of all, it's really being connected to someone who gets you cannot, I mean, it just cannot be, it cannot be compared to like if you can find some sort of community of people, like even if it's two people who get you and value what you are trying to do, even if it's for you and your church or you and a few house parties a year, I just feel like having people who understand you is really important. And I'm sure that those people would feel the same. You know, you could be that for those people too. But, you know, in terms of like writing and the craft, I mean, I think you just have to, I think you should, I would say don't be afraid to be vulnerable, and don't be afraid to really be honest, and to be true to what is like in your heart to say. 'Cause I think that's where people connect, you know, and not everybody will connect. You shouldn't try to get everybody, because sometimes that's how music gets watered down. It's like you're trying to get everybody and then you get nobody because there's no power in it. So, yeah, so I think find community, find like-minded people, iron sharpens iron, and just be true to your craft and work on it. Just make time for it. Make time for it. It is, if that is like something that is burning in your soul, you have to make time for it because it will feed the rest of your life.
That's awesome, Cindy. And I'll put in a little shameless plug for NCS membership because we deal with a lot of people that are in those artless kinds of towns, and it's
That's
a
a way for
great
them to
place.
connect,
It really, really is. So, well, this has been rich and awesome, and you are intriguing and beautiful and so deeply gifted. And thanks for sharing your heart and your family story a bit. And we'll be looking for that wonderful documentary and these 2 records coming out hopefully in 2019. So
Okay, awesome.
thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show today. I'm blown away with the encouragement and inspiration that every guest brings, and today was certainly no different. If you want even more encouragement and inspiration to take your songwriting to the next level, be sure to check out NCS membership over on our site at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. We're all about empowering you to become the best Christian songwriter that you can be, and NCS membership is simply the fastest and easiest way to get there. Become the songwriter that you were born to be by joining NCS membership today. I'll see you next time on the Song Revolution podcast.